Yo YouTube! This is my video for Monday the 30th of September, which is today. And can you guess where I am? Let's see how long it takes me to guess. I'll keep driving, and then the first person to tell me where I am will be given a golden star. So my stats for today are as follows. Based on an average fuel price, I'm going with last week because it's still Monday, of 13.13 pence per mile. Today I have driven 465 miles. I've worked for 13.25 hours, and I have earned from 3 CX jobs £360. 360. I've spent £61.05 on fuel, which means I've made quite an impressive £299 after fuel is taken into account today. And today's 3 jobs I'm about to describe to you, I could definitely do them again in another day. It came up, if it so came up that way. So definitely, I would definitely want to repeat today if it was an opportunity. So this morning I had a job booked in from just trying to remember, was it? Yeah, it was booked in last week. It was booked in, I'm sure, from Friday, I'm guessing. I forgot, to be honest, but yeah, it was booked. Yes, it was booked in Friday. I remember telling you in the last video. So it was going from Wisbech to Bristol. It was an 8:30 to 9:30 pickup. The job was a medium wheelbase van job, going 189 loaded miles, and I bid £1 a mile, so I got £1.90 for that. I left the house at 7:40 this morning, and I was having to drive about 20 miles to get to the pickup. And I arrived at just before, about 8:15 roughly. So it was a little bit early, but I thought I'd rather to be a little bit earlier than a little bit later, because I wanted to make the most use of the time I've got today. And they were open, and they gave me the items. So I was off site and on my way to Bristol with my items at 8:25. And the rundown was really quite simple, no traffic issues. When I set the Google Maps up, it was a little bit orange around Northampton, but it really wasn't a problem today. So by the time I got to my drop off and I'd finished dropping off the items, it was 12:55. So it was only about 3.5 hours in total. No, 4.5 hours, sorry. Right, so next I was looking at what jobs there were. There was a reasonable number of available jobs out of Bristol, and I got a job, and they called me at 1 o'clock. So 5 minutes after I dropped off and I was looking for a job, I got given this next job. And this was a small van job going from Bristol, and I was 23 minutes away, only 6 miles though. And it was going to Bath, and it was a total number of loaded miles of 22 loaded miles. And I got that for £50, 50. And it's a really simple job. It's picking up one box from a driver who was on a route and wasn't able to quite finish, and I was taking that box to Bath. And I had a quick chat with him, and I just happened to, because he had a big van, and the boxes were quite big, but they weren't that heavy. They looked heavier than they actually were in real life. And he had about 3 big boxes left. He gave me one of them, and I asked him, "Oh, when did you start work today then?" Because it seemed to me like he must have done quite a lot of stops because he had a big van. And he told me that he started work at 5 o'clock today, but usually it starts at 3 o'clock, which is quite impressive, I would say. So I picked that up off him, took the paperwork that he gave me for the customer to sign, and then made my way across to Bath. And I left him at around about just before, around about 1:30, and I arrived in Bath at. Well, I parked up at about 2:05, but I had to walk this box down to like a high street type area. It's in the middle of Bath. It's a BA1 postcode. It's quite a large box. I did struggle to carry it, not because it's weight necessarily, but because I was just having to walk a lot of steps with the box. And I got to the. I followed my sat nav to the shop, and it was it's down a, what do you call them, like an alleyway. There's a word for it I'm trying to think of. Where you got shops, arcade. There's an arcade off the main high street, and I found it, but I was at the back of the shop. I had to go all the way back around to the main high street and all the way around to the next street, and I was really going to struggle. So I ended up putting this box, effectively balancing it on my head and holding it underneath, so I didn't have to carry it with two hands with quite as much effort. And with that, I managed to get myself walked all the way around. It's amazing what I'm impressed with nowadays. I walked without stopping all the way around this arcade, around the corner and up the other side. Must have been about 150 metres, carrying this big box. And I felt so proud that I didn't stop and sit down. I was out of breath, but that's at least I managed to get it there. Got it offloaded and then walked back, and I didn't even sit down on the way back to the van. So I managed to get all the way back to the van without having to sit down. It was close, but I managed to do it. And by the time I got back to the van, so when I was at the back of the shop, it was 2:10. By the time I'd offloaded it and come back, it was 2:15. And I was now in the centre of Bath, which is no good for work. So I wanted to get myself somewhere else that was going to be get me in a good position for work. And I had been on a job going from Swindon to Hull, which would have been an amazing job for me to do, but I was probably about an hour away from Swindon at this point, and so I didn't get a job for that reason, I think. I put a good price on. So I just set my sat nav to take me out of the north of Bath, and I was out within about 10 minutes. And I found a parking bay on the road to park up at, and at this point I was 6 miles away from my drop off in Bath, and I was looking for jobs. And I didn't have to wait too long, I don't think. Yeah, so I got a call. So I stopped to wait at 2:40. That's when I was parked up. And by 2 minutes to 3, so 18 minutes later, I got given my next job, which was the one I've just done. It was going from Bristol, but my sort of side of Bristol where I was at the time. And I was only 15 minutes away, so 7 miles away from the pickup. And it's picking up a passport and to take it to London, a lady in London. And when I knew I was doing that, I was really looking forward to the job, because it's one of those jobs, I think, where it's probably one of the best jobs you can do, I would say, in that you're doing a service that is absolutely essential for somebody, and they're going to be really grateful, particularly if they need it desperately, and you're just doing your job. So often you get a lot of positive feedback for doing passport jobs. Now this one was slightly awkward, because when I had a phone number for the customer I was picking up from and a phone number for the one I was delivering to, so I rang the customer 10 minutes before I got to the pickup point, and they said that they were at work, they'd only just been told by somebody that this was going to happen, and that they would ring their mum at home in the flat. And so I said, that's fine, I'll make my way to the property and then I'll tell me what to do when I get there, if it's not obvious. And so she rang me back about 2 minutes before I arrived and said there's no one at home, but she was going to come back from work now using public transport, and that she thought she'd be about 25 minutes. And I said to her, that's fine, I'll wait for you. I arrived on site. I did go and ring the bell just in case something had changed in that time that she'd called me, and no one came to the door, so I'm glad I tried that. It makes a lot of sense. In the end, I arrived at 4:23 and I left at 3 o'clock. Just gone 3 o'clock. So I was there for about 25 minutes, as she said it was going to be. I did ring the shipper just to let them know as an update that I was going to be delayed leaving. I wasn't too bothered about at this point in time waiting time. I thought it was a very reasonable reason why she was a bit delayed. It's not like I don't think it's something you can really charge extra for unless it gets unreasonable, I think. But I think up to half an hour I think would be reasonable. Disappointing, I would say, but reasonable. So that job I haven't got the details for. So it was Canadian passport. It was 118 loaded miles from Bristol to London. I bid 120. It was I basically think of it as a car job, but it was actually in the system as a small van job. But really, a passport it's a motorcycle job, really. And I was 7 miles instead away from the pickup, and it was 23 minutes to drive there. So once I left, I sort of made my way towards London. The traffic had sort of set down a bit from when I first had looked at the route. It was going to be a bit over 2.5 hours, and when I looked at my arrival time, it was due to be around about 20 past 6. So I called the customer that I was coming to, and I let them know that I was on my way, and asked them if there's anything I need to be aware of in terms of the parking arrangements when I got to her. And I told her I'd be with her around about 6:30. And that was it. So I then made my way to London. I got obviously to London from Bristol really easily. I even got into central London pretty easily, but crossing London was the usual nightmare, and it took me about half an hour to go the last 6 miles, which actually isn't too bad for London, to be fair. Yeah, it's quite tedious, but it was the last job of the day, and now I'm going home empty. And I'm happy with today's sort of way things have gone. So, just to finish off, the tactic, as it were, to go do a long trip to Bristol, then a local job, and then a job to London, that is quite a good way for me to make a day's pay. So I definitely would think I'd do this again another time. I can't think of anything else to talk about at the moment. So I mean, there is stuff going on in the background in my life, but I don't feel it's the right time to tell you about it right now. It's positive stuff, it's good stuff, and one day I am going to tell you what's happening, but I need to be a bit more concrete about what it is before I start spouting about it on my YouTube channel. But yeah, so things are okay. I'll see you again on Wednesday. I'm going to have a very nice, I've got a good day planned on Wednesday, so I'll probably tell you about that on Wednesday. I'll probably end up having an early video. I'll give you a little sneak preview, a little taster for Wednesday's video. I'm looking to get a long trip to the northwest in the late morning. If I do that, then that's probably all I need to do that day. Right, so thank you for listening to my video. I hope that you are successful this week, depending on how you define that for yourselves. And I'll see you Friday. See you Wednesday. Farewell, friends.